Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thanks for spending some time with us today as we look at how the new AI features can enhance your lead score models. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So what's the plan for the next 45 minutes? Usual welcome. I thought it was probably worthwhile just going back and doing a little bit of a Eloqua 101 on lead scoring, just so we're clear on what that is, because we need to understand that in a bit more detail, I think, in the context of what these new AI data points are giving us. We'll look at reducing email fatigue and improving deliverability with actionable AI insights and how that rolls into your lead scoring and being able to route people differently, for instance, in campaigns, etc. We'll look at some lead scoring in action, tangible ways that you could implement and make some changes and use either the lead scoring and or the AI features to help you. And then our segment that we've been adding is our second one for this month. So the Eloqua AI Advantage, where we'll look at one of the particular functions and explore it in a little bit more detail. And then if we have time, looking at 25C, the release that took place in August. So let's jump in. My name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Adrian Jones, our CEO and founder, is manning the Q&A and the chat, so please keep him busy. He's ready to answer questions. You can ask those at any point. You don't need to wait till the end of the webinar in order to do that. As you know, they're all recorded. Please also use the Zoom emoticons if you like. You can upvote, downvote, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whichever you like to do. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning just quickly and looking at lead scoring, kind of a 101 crash course. I'm not sure how you do that in 5 minutes, but let's see how we go. So some of the key things to remember, I suppose. So lead scoring essentially is an objective ranking. Way back when Eloqua devised this concept of lead scoring and combining it with digital body language, there was really no way to do it. We had everybody cruising online and salespeople were getting ignored, and we had zero insight into what was going on. And so lead scoring became a way for us to look at that online behavior, email opens, web page visits, those sorts of things, and then incorporate those into a lead score, fundamentally doing what salespeople had done for centuries, but looking at it from an online and a digital point of view. So an objective ranking of one sales lead against another. Now, this language that you see on the screen is directly from the Eloqua Help Center, so there's nothing revolutionary here. But the thing I wanted to point out to you was that really everything you read about lead scoring is very much about sales and leads and lead processing. And I want to try and push your thinking a little bit today to say that there is more that we can do with lead scoring than just simply creating marketing qualified leads and pitching them over the fence to the sales team. But fundamentally, we need to understand how it works as a model so we can kind of stretch it and do other things with it. The notion is generally that marketing and sales will always work together to collaboratively define what makes up a good lead. And then we go into Eloqua and we start to look at profile data points, engagement data points, and with a little bit of gut feel mixed with a little bit of mathematics and formulas that Eloqua do in the background, we then arrive at a lead score model, which you can then activate. And then the objective ranking begins to kick in, and we understand what that looks like. The thing that I wanted to try and give you some ideas around was pushing this idea of how we can use a lead score model. We sometimes prefer to refer to it as an engagement score versus a lead score, but it all depends on the context of what you're doing the lead score model for. For example, we also have at Marketing Cube, and some of our customers do a similar thing, which is a customer engagement score, because the type of communications and also the profile potentially of the people that you're targeting is going to be a little bit different to the people who are customers who you've invoiced for services or products, who are on the books, so to speak. And so the campaigns that you may score highly in the context of a prospect or a prospective client is going to be different to those who are incumbent or with you or in the installed base, depending on how you refer to them. And so creating a customer engagement score can be a really good idea as well. The universities, if you think about it from a university point of view, you've got enrolled students and you've got prospective students. And probably likely that very few campaigns that are run in those sort of environments touch on both of those cohorts together at the same time. Maybe open day to a degree, etc. But there'll be a whole range of other types of campaigns that are run where you have two very distinct audiences. So creating a single lead score model for two very distinct audiences may be a little counterintuitive. If you work in a channel environment, for example, so channel partners. So if we look at financial services and they have a large cohort of financial advisors that they're communicating with versus business partners and customers, etc. So very distinct groups. So again, multiple lead score models. And again, we use that term very liberally. So maybe engagement score models would be more appropriate. You can also go down to a very specific level at a campaign. So you may create a score that is specific for a campaign. I told you I'd give you some real world examples. We have a client who is in the event space. They do large events that you probably see around the country and across Asia. They actually produced lead score models for each individual event that they were running. Now, these are big events, by the way, with generally 12 plus months lead time. So they're not sort of next week's barbecue. Okay, so they're big events. And so they used lead score model, the Eloqua lead score model, to help them really gauge who was engaging with the content in relation to the specific event that was happening. So the lead score model matched a single event. Really interesting way of doing things. Then you may also have product or service specific scores. So within your organization, you may have highly profitable products that if you can sell lots of them, that's fantastic. You may have other products that are great products, but maybe don't produce as much margin, etc. So you can create lead score models to focus on those and apply that same logic to different services that you may provide as well. So that's what I just want to push your thinking a little bit in relation to different ways that we can use this lead score model within Eloqua to do a whole range of different things. One pro tip for you, when you go to the Eloqua, this is the Eloqua dashboard area and looking at one particular lead score model. And what you've got to remember is that when you view the lead score model, say in this scenario, what you're looking at is every single contact in the database in the context of that particular score. So as I just described to you, you probably want to do different scores for different groups, etc. So how can you make those changes? Well, you can't in relation to those dashboards. So what you really want to do then is these are a great indicator. They're quite helpful in giving you an idea of where the numbers are at kind of generally. But we would then probably go either into Insight to create more specific lead score dashboards that are far more tailored with just the contacts in the lead score model dashboard that you're targeting versus having everybody in it. And of course, you can go into segments as well and apply some filters in segments and use the lead score model as a filter criteria to identify that same audience. Okay, lead scoring with AI, reducing email fatigue and improving deliverability. Let's have a look. The first thing I wanted to show you is when you're in Eloqua, you're looking at a contact, where do you see these scores and their levels? So what are they? Okay, so what we've got here is a contact view in Eloqua. So the account engagement score is an account field and the fatigue level is a contact field. And so you can add both of those fields to any of the views that you have configured. So you can see here, this is our event registration contact view, and we've incorporated the account engagement score and also the fatigue. And I was quite delighted, and I promise you that's not being photoshopped. Adrian really is just right. So that's good news. And our team is obviously highly engaged with a score of 96.5. Okay, so remember, wherever you make changes to your contact views, that then means wherever you're looking at contacts and you can adjust the views, you'll have that information available to you. That'd be one of my first steps or my first tips. Get the data in front of the user community so people can see it and start to see some correlation with other behaviors that are going on. Okay, all right, so that's where we see it. Now, combining the AI data with our lead score models, I wanted to start with fatigue analysis. feels like a good place to start. So how does it actually work? We need to understand how it works so that we can make a better decision about how to incorporate it into the lead score model. All right, so the fatigue analysis assigns a level, I'll show you the levels here in a moment, to all of the contacts within your database, every single contact. And it's basically, as it says here, it's based on each contact's engagement and their predicted chance of disengagement. Okay. How does it do that? Well, I suppose that's where the AI comes in, right? The fatigue level is generated by Oracle, and it's added to that contact field that I just showed you a moment ago. Now, it's calculated on a range of data points, but essentially it's both email open engagement and the number of email messages sent to a given contact. This is important in the last 180 days or 6 months. And so in concert with all of that, it considers recency and frequency of the sends. So that's you sending emails out and the opens of the individual once they receive them. So that you can see there's a number of variables at play there. And once those variables are at play and the algorithm runs and the AI does its magic, then there are 9 possible fatigue levels that are assigned. So keep in mind, these are the values that you see in the contact in Eloqua, okay? I tell you that because when we get to the lead score model, this will be repeated. And so we just need to understand what they look like. So there's inactive, there's undersaturated, just right. We then have saturated, low, medium, high, and oversaturated, low, medium, and high. So what does it all mean? How can we use it to enhance the lead score? So again, we kind of need to understand, because when you go into lead score models, you assign either a high score or a low score to it. And there's other values like recency that doesn't apply to contact fields. Recency only applies to engagement. So I'll show you that here in a moment. So we have inactive, we have undersaturated, and we have just right. What does it all mean? So when someone first comes into your database and they're a brand new contact within the platform, then they're considered inactive because there's been no actual engagement, right? They probably have been sent maybe an autoresponder email if they filled in a form, but they've not received anything. And so the data point or the data point to remember is it's 45 days is the criteria. So if the contact has not received an email within the last 45 days, then they will fall to inactive. So when you look at your database, and many of the clients I've looked at their dashboards where you see this information, some have a very large chunk of inactive, and others have a very small chunk of inactive. And that really depends on you as a business and how you typically communicate with your database. For some organizations, reaching out to people once every few months or a few times every few months is kind of it. Whereas for other organizations, you're possibly communicating on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So that 45-day threshold will kind of work nicely, would be a bit of an alarm bell. But if you have a very long sales cycle, that inactive criteria may not be as alarming as it sounds. Okay, so 45 days is not a long time. So have a think about that. Now, then you move to undersaturated. This one basically is there's just not enough data. These people have been sent something, but there's just not enough data to really classify them as just right at this particular point. Okay. Now, of course, just right, or what I'm calling the Goldilocks zone, that's the nirvana state. That's the people who are kind of actively engaged. You're sending a good number of emails, they're engaging with that content, they're opening, they're clicking, they're doing all those sorts of things. So that's a really good point to have. Okay, so need to remember these things because when we get to the lead score model, we then need to determine, do we actually penalize or score down a contact who is inactive? Do we do the same thing with undersaturated? Do we score them down? I don't know. We need to think about that. Just right is pretty clear. Okay. Now, the next step or the next 2 levels are saturated, low, medium, and high, and oversaturated, low, medium, and high. I'm trying to work out how to present this to you in a graphic to try and help it make sense was a bit of a struggle, but hopefully this is working for you. Now, the reason I've highlighted the inactive, undersaturated, and just right is that I think they're the three that we could potentially use in the lead score model to get the most value from. And look, I'm still learning on this point too, by the way. I'm still testing and improving as I go. I'm not convinced there's necessarily great value in adding saturated or oversaturated to our lead score models, because if you did, what would you actually give them a score of? And keeping in mind, you're adding a score to a score. That's the other thing to kind of factor in. Okay, and remember, these are profile data points, not engagement data points. So because they're profile points in the lead score model, we can't apply recency. Okay, that's all kind of taken care of here. The fatigue level takes care of the recency for us and then gives it a label, essentially. All right, so what does that look like in Eloqua? So this is kind of where I've come to in relation to how it might look in Eloqua. Now you'll see, so I've got exactly just right, exactly undersaturated, and then starts with oversaturated or starts with saturated. I just wasn't sure there was any real value in going to the nth degree of the oversaturated, low, medium, and high, and providing relevant scores against each of those. It's early days, in 6 months or 12 months where we see more and we have more experience under our belt and we can see the impact potentially, then that may change. But as of today, I'm not convinced there's a tremendous amount of value in doing that. So for those who are just right, so these people who are actively engaged, and in my traditional lead score model, these people would probably already be coming to the surface. So this is just another data point that we now have available to kind of help validate that, I suppose, and also potentially lift the score overall. In relation to undersaturated, that group had me thinking. I was like, well, yes, no, should I, shouldn't I? So the undersaturated, remember, these are a group of people who have been sent communications, but there just isn't enough data at this stage to assign them just right or in fact inactive, because that 45-day criteria has been met, so they have been sent something. Okay. Then the oversaturated and saturated, should I, shouldn't I? Okay, in this example, I'm like, what the heck? We'll give it 50%. We'll hedge our bets sort of both ways, and we'll see what happens. And then, of course, you'll notice that inactive is not listed here. So I ummed and ahed about it. On the previous slide, I suggested to you that you could include it, because remember, inactive also means people who are brand new to your database. Now, it's likely there are other areas of the score model that you're producing where you can identify those people. Date created would be the obvious one. If a date created is within the last 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, then you might beef the score up. So that kind of negates the need for inactive, because inactive at the moment really is a group of two people. It's either brand new contacts to your database, or it's groups within your database who may have been there for years, but in the last 45 days, you've not sent them anything. So when I factored all of that together, I just wasn't convinced there was value necessarily in including inactive in the model. Early days, just my thought process. And look, you probably need to have this discussion yourself as a team as you go through this process. Okay, fatigue level or fatigue analysis, producing a fatigue level. So key things to think about there. The fatigue level value is generated by Oracle. There's no impact you can have on the level that is assigned. It's the only impact you can have is by putting people through more campaigns. That's really the only impact you can have. But AI takes care of the rest and provides you with a label or a level. Fatigue level is calculated using both email open engagement and the number of email messages sent. So those things combined. And the evaluation period is the last 180 days or 6 months that it keeps looking back at over time. Okay. Combining AI data. So with account intelligence, this is the other side of the coin. So account intelligence, each account is assigned a score from essentially 0 to 100. And higher the score, the more engaged. How do we use this one? So this one will differ probably based on the different groups who are on the call with us today. So I'm just having a quick look down the list. Yeah, so for those in financial services, in real estate, in professional services, those sorts of environments where accounts are something that you work with on a regular basis. That typically means you've got a CRM integrated, you have an account construct, and in that CRM, you have multiple contacts that are linked to an account. Okay. If we look at the other cohort on the call today, so we move, say, to higher education, that what I just described is typically not the case. The bulk of your database typically is individuals, usually prospective students or students, but not linked to an account or a business entity of some sort. Now, of course, you do have people in your database who are from, maybe they're agents, for example, and they belong to a company, and so on and so forth. So that could be of interest. The whole account intelligence relies on that account construct being in play. So again, if you're in professional services, financial services, ones I talked about earlier, then this is probably pretty much a default for you. Legal services, etc. You have that construct already. And so you can look at the account engagement score in an overall context. So really what it's doing, it's taking the individual behavior and scoring those and rolling it up to deliver what is essentially an account score. So how do we use that one? Well, there are a range of ways we can do it. So if we go to our lead score model, what I've done here, and this is kind of really our first go at looking at this in the context of this whole feature being active. And so we've just decided to pick, between 0 to 20 and 21 to 50 and 50 to 70, etc., and kind of a sliding scale of percentages on the right-hand side. We did that looking a little bit at some of the scores that we see today. So by looking at those particular scores and looking at the accounts and seeing the scores that were assigned, and we see an account we recognize, we're like, okay, yep, I'd agree that account is fairly engaged. We do have good input from that organization, and so on and so forth. So we're just trying to get a sense as to what that score actually means. What I've noticed, though, is there's not a lot in that score band, at least within our instance of Eloqua. Most of the scores seem to be sort of at that 75 and above type area. Then there's a few accounts sort of floating in the middle, and then the rest are kind of at the bottom. Not necessarily zero, some are zero, but yeah, it just. So yeah, look, that just must be the way it delivers it, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just trying to look at the data and interpret the data so that we can then get some value here in relation to adding that score. So again, keeping in mind what we're doing is we're kind of adding a score to a score in this instance. Okay. So lead scoring action, what does it look like? What I wanted to do here was just kind of show you some instances of where you can use the lead score and also look at some examples just in discussion with clients and ourselves, what we're doing and how we're using it. The ability to query from the campaign canvas a person's lead score can be really, really helpful. You may use it in the segment to start your audience build process. That's great. And then you put them on a campaign. And if we take a lead nurture campaign, typically if that goes for a few months, hopefully the goal is that from the point of them entering that campaign to concluding the nurture campaign, hopefully their engagement increases, in which case their lead score would potentially increase as well. Most of you on the call today would probably end up in a scenario where you would have multiple lead score models in play. And so that's really where a shared filter can come into play. So this is actually a shared filter that you can see on the screen in front of you. And you can see the profile and engagement, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and a specific model. So use the following lead score model, and that becomes a drop-down list of all of your active lead score models. So you can see if you're running multiple models, you really kind of need to do this. It's a little bit easier to run. And so once we've got that sitting in play, well, then we can start to drive things on the campaign canvas and move people around more than we could potentially by just ignoring it. Okay, so let's have a look. Try these sort of strategic plays when you're thinking about combining a lead score which now includes hopefully some of our AI pieces as well. Who should or should not be sent a third email invitation with the support of fatigue analysis? Now, the reason I put that one there is because literally, I think it was just last week, Adrian was on a call with a client. They had a big event happening. They had several thousand people that they wanted. I think they had left over in a segment that they just kind of wanted to reach out to again. But these people had already been contacted multiple times. So this was kind of like a last ditch effort to try and get these people to register to attend the event. Then they decided, well, hang on a minute, we've got the fatigue analysis in there. Let's apply maybe oversaturated and saturated to that segment filter criteria, remove those people and kind of get our list down to the group who are probably far more likely to actually engage. So that was just one really tangible, hands-on, what a great idea, use of the technology to identify, hopefully, a more responsive audience based on the information you've got. Now, another thing you can do with lead scoring is to adjust the velocity of a contact in a campaign if their lead score increases. And obviously the other way if it decreases potentially as well. That's using that shared filter that I just showed you. So you can drop that on your canvas, have people come through, maybe they're 4 or 5 emails into a nurture. Then what you might want to do is check to see, well, has their lead score increased? Has it gone from whatever to whatever? Or is it at least at this level? If it is, great. Let's maybe pick up the pace potentially, route them differently, ask additional questions, whatever it might be to get a better idea. Now, the other way you could do it is a really highly tailored lead score model that can support a whole range of different changes. So in those examples I gave you earlier, to try and stretch your thinking a little bit, we talked about even going right down to the level of a campaign-specific lead score model. It's doable. People do it. It does happen. Like the event organization I shared with you earlier, they absolutely did it. So those highly tailored lead score models can definitely help route contacts as their score changes, increases or decreases, etc. You can move people around based on different things. Now, the account engagement score also provides your ABM teams with a level of insight they've probably not really had before. You've had that information sitting there in Eloqua, and you might have, potentially, 200 or 300 contacts at a single account. Now, not all of those people are going to be super engaged with you, but the ability for you to be able to collectively look at those 200 or 300 contacts that belong to a single account and then give that account an overall engagement score would be quite helpful, I imagine, to any ABM marketers that you may have on the team. So something else to think about. So let's take a look on a multi-step campaign and just have a quick look at what those shared filters, etc., might actually look like. So here's one I prepared earlier. So you've got the compare contact fields, and you can see because it's a contact field, we have fatigue level available. And so it's a drop-down list, as you can see, and it's a single select drop-down list, which is fine if you're wanting to route people based on inactivity or just right or undersaturated. The challenge is when you get here with these 3, you need to repeat the process 3 times. So this one, yes, no, this one, yes, no, it gets a bit messy. Another way to do it, what we've done is we created some shared filters. The shared filters are just a bit smarter. So shared filters here. So you can see if I wanted to query on oversaturated to potentially do what Adrian shared that he'd done with a client last week, you could actually incorporate this into your campaign canvas. And when it gets time to send that third invitation, you could use the shared filter, which is reflecting those values of oversaturated or fatigue, oversaturated or saturated, and route them out of the campaign, move them out to either end the campaign or wait step till after the event, see if they attended, those sorts of things. And the nice thing is, of course, when you create those shared filters, they're also visible in your segment area. So when you create segments, you've got exactly the same function available to you. So it can help from a filtering criteria. Now, the other one that you can play with is the lead score. And so here, what I've done again is create a leads or a shared filter that reflects my specific lead score model, but only focuses on A1. Actually, that should be A1, A2, B1, B2. So A12, B12. Essentially. And so again, that enables me to route people in slightly different directions should I want to. These are the A being the most highly qualified from a profile point of view, and 1 and 2 being the most engaged with your content. So a hot lead, you might say, from that point of view, or the most engaged, depending if it's a customer model that you're producing, etc. So they're just a couple of examples directly from the campaign canvas as to where you can access this information, how you access it, and whether you choose to do it using the actual contact fields or potentially using a shared filter is really up to you as to what you do. The shared filter is nice because it's just reusable. You can use it again and again. And plus, as I said, you can also use it in your shared filter as well. So you've got some options there to play with. So let's have a look at the Eloqua AI Advantage, our little segment that we wanted to add each month. And we're just over the coming months, we're just going to explore each of those different areas. And when we get to the end of that list, I'm sure there'll be other things that we can look at as well. So we've touched on a little bit of this today already, but just wanted to recap for you. So the account engagement overview is in fact a dashboard. And so from that dashboard, you will see a whole range of information. So what can you see? Tips I would give you to start with is when you look at the account engagement overview dashboard, it's going to show you your top engaged accounts. And I think it gives you, I think it's top 10 or top 15, I think it is. Then there's an activity timeline as well. So you kind of get to see that engagement over time. And then also top accounts by engagement score, and then all of the accounts by engagement score. And when you start to drill into it, you see more information, essentially. So this is what it looks like. And so what it also shows you is the change. So the first column is the actual score, or the name of the account, sorry, then the score. Then you've got the change in last week. So whether they've gone up or down or whichever direction they've gone. And the number of activities that were scored necessarily. And then the engaged contacts versus reachable contacts that are contained within there. So yeah, these are clearly made up accounts, by the way, to protect the guilty on the left there with those account names. But yeah, if you scroll down, you can search. You can see there's a search bar there. You can scroll down and see more information. But go and have a look, right? Go and have a look at this information. That's when you'll start to see some magic, right? So the tips I would give you is, as we looked at very early today in today's episode, make sure we get that account engagement score added to your contact and account views. Unless the score is visible to your user communities, it's just going to kind of be a bit of an intellectual exercise. But if you can start to see the score in the context of the list of people that you're looking at, then that can add some more insight. So lead score models, which was obviously our topic today, to talk in more detail about. So get that score into your lead scores, and think about using the account engagement score to adjust the contact's journey in lead score models. We haven't done this yet, but I'm kind of thinking through changes as we look into the new year. Terrified that I'm even mentioning 2026. I apologize. But, if you've got certain contacts that are in a campaign and their account score is quite high, is that sort of an indication that maybe you should be looking at other contacts within that particular account? Now, that's kind of a bit more of an ABM type of approach, I suppose, but that's a little bit of what we're trying to do at Marketing Cube. It's just there's a whole nother layer of insight that we have coming to us, which is fascinating with all of these AI features that are rolling out. Okay, so what's new and what's coming? There's a few things to share here, and I wanted to pinch a little bit actually from the Eloqua product team, which I'll show you here in a second. We covered these last month, but just again to recap, multi-language selection for AI-powered content and subject line generation. So at this stage, most of those are the Latin languages, Spanish, French, etc., English, and so on and so forth. What we don't have is any of the Asian-based languages as yet, but we have been told that that is absolutely on the roadmap and will be coming. So don't hold your breath, but stay tuned would be my advice on that one. Send time optimization is available in guided campaigns for those that are using it. The Redwood updates have been quite extensive with signature layouts. The thumbnail view for images is quite nice. Quite enjoying that, just seeing bigger images of my images, which is nice. Also changes to the contact folder. I kind of really need to show you that one. We've got a couple of minutes here. I'll see if I can jump in and do that. The sales tools updated. That's more of a technical thing than anything else, but there's actually a whole new profiler coming from mostly a Redwood look and feel, but also some other enhancements. For those that are running the Oracle Eloqua SMS product, usage reports available, new stock records report, and changes to the Zoom app for Eloqua, the Salesforce app, and the Oracle Sales app enhancements, all of those. If you subscribe to our important updates, you will have seen more detail on some of those points. This is just kind of an updated pitch that Eloqua are using to describe the Eloqua product holistically. So you have all of these things available to you today. They're all part of what you have as an Eloqua client. So it's just kind of more of a reminder than anything else. I'm preaching to the choir, right? So, but there were some highlights that they shared in relation to the roadmap. And so the roadmap is things that are coming, obviously. And if this was Oracle presenting it, there would be a safe harbor statement saying we can promise you the world and potentially deliver nothing. That's a standard technology industry line. Generally speaking, they do deliver some pretty cool stuff. Big focus on generative AI, loads more coming there, which is good. The Redwood experience will continue. This unified orchestration concept, streamlined workflows to build multi-channel campaigns, to target accounts, conversation-ready opportunities. There's more coming in relation to that. And additional suite integration. So really beefing up the ability for the platform, whether it's connecting with Oracle products, so Oracle Unity CDP, which has wrapped up a 3-part series, on that one, some of you attended, etc. All those sorts of integrations, and also to third parties. So Microsoft Dynamics, for example, is on the roadmap as well. Being able to connect to Eloqua and Microsoft Dynamics more easily is a good thing. This is kind of their abridged list, as they call it. For those of you that are spending time buried in a bit of AI and agentic and all that sort of fun stuff, these things will mean more to you. Where appropriate, we'll try and expand on some of these things as we move into 2026 and sort of explain a bit more to you as to how you can incorporate those within your Eloqua world and your data and your existing data that you've got today. But of course, if you do have any questions, please reach out to Adrian or myself at any point. We'd love to talk to you a little bit further about those. Just diving a bit deeper on the generative AI future. So please, again, this is all future roadmappy type stuff we're talking about. The content intelligence I'm looking forward to. So rewriting, shortening, lengthening, summarization of content. I think that's going to be really quite helpful is probably the best word. The content recommendations, so generating contextual content based on brand and reference documents. And so that's the key thing that's missing today with the Gen AI piece within Eloqua. There's no way for us to really give it a brand voice based on your brand, okay? At the moment, you can basically say to it, okay, be formal, be casual, be intellectual. There's a few options you can play with there. That's about as far as it goes. But that's it's early days. It's release 1.0, so that's fine. What's coming, though, is the ability for us to be able to expand that and give it a more of a brand flavor, which is cool. Then the form design editor. So this is definitely roadmap, but it's all coming. This is kind of a Redwood experience that you can see in front of you. So kind of playing around. We've got general settings area. We've got form capability. And just adjusting and a little bit more functionality with some of the things you can kind of see here, duplicating and all those sort of fun things. So you'll make that change, I think, quite easily because you get it. The form is the form, but there's just more options available to you. This is the one that I'm interested in, which is, well, I'm interested in all of them, but this one particularly, the campaign canvas. So this is a mock-up, obviously, of what that might look like in the world to come. So this will be my fourth iteration of a campaign canvas with Eloqua. So again, I don't have a time frame on this one. Eloqua didn't discuss a time frame on this one, but the only other thing that was told to us by another Oracle employee who's kind of in the know was that these things are happening faster than he was anticipating in discussions with the team in the US, who are obviously kind of driving all of this. So 2026 looks to be fun. We see more features, more functionality, enhancements, a whole range of different things coming. That kind of wraps us up. I did want to just give you a quick, I will dive into contacts and show you those changes here in a moment if you want to hang around. But if you need to run, 5th of November, just a time change. We're moving to 1:30 p.m. So today was 1 p.m. Next month in November will be at 1:30 p.m. This is all daylight savings, summertime shifts. Auckland, I felt like Auckland went early this year. That's why we moved to 1 p.m. last month and again this month, etc. Otherwise, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon for them. And we want to try and cover, obviously, our friends in Perth and in Southeast Asia and as far as India if we can, without it being too silly. So next month will be 1:30 p.m. All right, let me just quickly dive in here and show you, for those that just want to hang around. Now, we had Adrian open, didn't we? Had Adrian's contacts. Where am I? So to show you a couple of the changes. Oh, whoops. Okay, so if we look at Adrian. Okay, so a couple of things. Sometimes I notice if I double click on an empty field for some reason, sometimes it doesn't open. Odd. So if you're trying to get in and you have that experience, just click on a field that has content and then it opens. All right, so we've got nice wide screen, all sorts of things going on. What's actually changed? So when you click on the edit pencil, this appears over on the right-hand side. This is what I was showing you earlier as to how you can make those changes, etc. We'll just move the zoom out of the way. And you can edit and do what you need to do. Discard that. So the part that's actually now easier is when you're looking at activities, for example, and you go to, say, email opens, the screen will refresh or the column will refresh. He's opening lots of things. Now you can't scroll down, so you have to click on view more. So when you go into view more, this is the part that actually has enhanced. So you've also got a filter that you can play with here. So if you're really trying to narrow down what you're looking for, that's the last 7 days, you can see Adrian is hyper engaged. But you don't have to leave this and go out and come back in. You can just stay here now that you're in, and you can play with campaign membership. And again, you can adjust your timings here, etc. So this experience that I've just given you, shown you, this is part of that enhancement that was mentioned there in relation to some of the enhancements with the latest release. So it just makes viewing that information a little bit easier. And you can see that same sort of principle applies here. Campaigns, there's no search function because you're only looking at campaigns anyway in that context. But you do have that same sort of date range, and you can provide a custom range as well. I used to always go to Profiler for that level of information because it was too fiddly to try and see in this interface. But now that we've got the ability to filter and provide a date range, etc., I kind of am probably using Profiler a little bit less than I do at the moment. So that was it, folks. Thank you so much for hanging around. Hopefully that was helpful. Please, if you do have any questions, happy to stay here on the line for a few more moments. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you next month in November. Thank you, everybody.